subscribers. It's been a while since I did one of these update videos, but I've been wanting to lay one down after I got finished with the most recent crop of releases. Hopefully you're all enjoying that now. The latest 4 that just came out will bring up year 3 to the point of being almost current. May and June's releases to close out year 3 are still forthcoming. More about that in a moment. But thank you for being patient with me. Basically, the last 4 months got kind of crazy. About 2 months of that was just putting the series of year 3 to the side a little bit to have time and energy to do all the organization work for the year 2 complete box set, which, you know, as you may be aware, when I do these complete box set, I go back to the original sessions and basically pull as much stuff as I can that got left off, or maybe, you know, alt mixes and stuff. But anyway, yeah, so that took a lot of time. And then the other 2 months were basically I was getting ready to travel to Chicago to see Gas, which I did, and that was amazing. Got to meet up while I was there with Stephen Hitchell from Echospace, which was also amazing. Steve and I have been very close friends since about 2012, so it was a very surreal and enlightening experience to go and hang out and see Gas. I got to meet Wolfgang Voigt. Some of you already have heard about all this, so it's not new news for you, but still worth mentioning. And then when I came back from Chicago, I basically, like a week later, had to turn around and go back out to Indianapolis, where we were taking my daughter out for a 6th birthday kind of thing. And then after that, I got really, really sick with what a doctor in an urgent care said was actually the flu. So that put me off of everything for a while, and I'm only now, as of about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, bouncing back and getting caught up on orders and music and everything else. So that said, I do hope you're enjoying the fruits of this 3rd year of the series. I think they're really interesting. You know, Earth 31 was basically a live set that I did for the members of my fan club community. I streamed it over at Twitch, and it was totally improvised. Really like how that turned out, especially post mastering. Same with Earth 33, Ebla. That was another one that was done live, streamed to Twitch, at least initially. Obviously, they all don't get the slicked up, mastered, finished product that you've all inherited as subscribers of the Deep Earth series. That is one minor discrepancy I have with Patreon as a platform for the fan club and Bandcamp as a platform for the subscription. They don't really like to work together yet. I wish I could either have them work together in a way that I could offer a subscription to Deep Earth as a part of a reward package over at my fan club on Patreon, or at least be able to manually add people to the subscription at Deep Earth, because then I could work with that as well. But for the time being, the subscription to Deep Earth and my fan club at Patreon have to be completely separate entities. So we'll see about merging them more in the future. I know not all of you who are here for Deep Earth are necessarily interested in everything at the fan club and vice versa. But it would just be nice to have those things be linked in such a way if possible. So yeah, all that said, the other 2 that came out, Colisi, which is Esperanto for collision, is basically like possibly the lightest, airiest, like bounciest thing in the Deep Earth series yet. It was not intended to turn out as like housey and sort of easy as it did. That was basically the first session I made coming back from installing a new battery in my Boss DR660 drum machine, which was the third drum machine I ever had. Very fond of it, and the internal battery died when I was moving and lost a lot of patterns, which were actually custom kits and things I made that appeared on the very first Deep Earth releases. very prominently. In fact, like, I think the first 3 Deep Earth releases were just the DR660 with custom kits I made running through some filters and the Quadraverb and stuff like that. So, anyway, so it was really nice to have that back, and that whole session of just using the 660 with the Quadraverb kind of and the Moogs kind of manifested itself into very surprising ways, which led me to wonder if this was actually the destination of Deep Earth all along. You know, that I know when I started this project, I set out to sort of explore the possibilities of live improvisations on all hardware without any computers, that kind of thing, in almost a very purist sort of approach. And initially, yeah, you would assume that that's going to mean something much more experimental will come out. But, you know, it's one of those things where I wonder as time goes on and I get better and faster and sharper with my skills on the gear, and I get more gear and I become more able to use that gear, is it ultimately going to end up becoming something that more and more resembles a non-Deep Earth Kappas Halifax record, which is interesting to think about. So yeah, I'm very fascinated with that. And with regard to that, May's entry into the Deep Earth series is the titles are all pre-written and everything for the whole year when I start out. So there's all the Esperanto descriptions are all pre-written. The whole narrative is set up. So basically, when I'm going through the year, everything is kind of got these signposts up, and I just basically fill in the blanks, and I'm basically like scoring to my own ideas. So May's entry is called Neskigi. I don't know if I'm saying that right, of course. I don't know what the pronunciation on a lot of these things is. But Neskigi means to be born, and or birth. And I think that's appropriate, not only to the concept of the whole like kind of text that's been going alongside the series, because it is relevant to that and related to that, but more just because my 35th birthday just came to pass on the 17th, and I, for my birthday, got a new piece of gear for the studio. I got a Korg Minilog analog polyphonic synthesizer. This is my second polysynth, I want to say. No, third. Yeah. My first was the Roland SH32. My second was the Volca Keys. And my third was the Boss DR or DS330 Dr. Synth Rompler box. But out of those, the only one that's analog is the Korg Volca Keys. And it's a great synth, and I've used it a whole hell of a lot, but it is also fairly limiting in that it does not have an internal, it doesn't have step sequencing. It's only live sequencing, so basically it's only going to play back as good as your fingers will allow you to input it. So it's a little unforgiving. It's better for pads and things, but it's not, you know, like I really wanted a polyphonic synthesizer that was fully analog, that had a step sequencer, so I could do that kind of approach, because I love step sequencing. It's very old school, but also a lot more precise for me when I'm setting up more complex sets of gear to do different types of things. I'll know exactly where everything is and when everything is. That's also how the Microbrute works. It's all step sequencing, but like all the other synths I've got, analog or otherwise, besides the ones I named, they're all monosynths. I have a lot of monosynths. And I love monosynths. Nothing against the monosynths. I have a Microbrute. I have a Volca bass. I have a Dave Smith Instruments Mofo. I have a Korg MS-20. The list just keeps going. And they're all great. But polyphony is its own thing, as I'm sure many of you know. So basically, going back to the idea of scoring to this, this title, Neskigi, to be born, is appropriate, because something that I always do when I get a new piece of gear in the studio is, for a couple weeks at least, I'll use just that piece of gear by itself, and really learn it, really get familiar with it, really get comfortable on it, get a bunch of my own presets built into it and custom kits, and maybe even some sequences that I like that I can just fall back on. And you know, so yeah, in that way, I think it's interesting that that's going to be the first thing is that I'm basically doing that with. And you may remember the beginning of year 2 or year 3, sorry, of the series. I can't remember the exact one. Was all solo MS-20 because I had just gotten the MS-20 this time last year. So, and I've certainly used the hell out of the MS-20 in a lot of different ways, and I'm still learning that. I think there's a lot more under the hood on that, believe it or not, than the Mini-Log. The Mini-Log's an amazing synth, and it's got a lot of cool abilities and little things it can do. But just by virtue of being patchable, the MS-20 is far more like muscle. You can really get it to do a lot of crazy things, especially when you factor in I can patch it in and out of my 3 Mooger Foogers, and the Micro Brute has a very tiny little patching thing. So there's a lot of interesting stuff that I'm beginning to do. Plus it has the external signal processor on the MS-20. The Mini-Log does too, but I don't think it does quite as much as the MS-20 external signal processor. The one on the Mini-Log, as I understand it, is just a through jack for the filter input, which is nice. So if I want to process a guitar or another drum machine or synthesizer through the filter on the Mini-Log, I can do that. The external signal processor on the MS-20, on the other hand, is really fantastic because it's reactive in a way that it's basically taking all that tonal and timing information and interpreting it on its own into CV signals, and pitch and everything. So you can basically, like I just recently learned how to shove a drum machine into it and get the thresholds just right to where it's reading all the information the right way and patching it so that it basically turns a drum machine into an acid line, which is really fantastic and fun. And so stuff like that I think I'm going to have to spend the next couple weeks learning with the new Polysynth. And a lot of that will likely end up on the last couple Deep Earth iterations for year 3. I have some really cool plans, kind of hoping to go into almost an Aerovane kind of territory, because I also got a new drum machine, just a little Teenage Electronics PO12. It's about the size of a calculator, and you might think it was one. It's got a little LED screen on it and everything, but it's a full drum machine with a step sequencer on it and everything, and really powerful. Got some cool effects and stuff. Really fun. And it's very easy to get like really weird, glitchy, sort of motion sequence heavy patterns out of that lend themselves well to like a really minimalist, like techno approach, I guess, or more IDM approach. So so you'll be hearing that as well. But yeah, that said, the other thing I wanted to go over for the Deep Earth subscribers in particular is that as the series finishes its 3rd year in June, I am not going to be, in July, immediately resuming it for year 4. But, you know, don't worry, hold your horses, don't freak out. That doesn't mean I'm discontinuing the series or I'm taking a sabbatical or anything like that, because I'm not. What that really means is I'm still going to be working on a lot of Deep Earth stuff, but I'm just not going to be working on year 4 proper. Like, basically, Earth 37 will be the beginning of year 4. I don't want to do Earth 37 until January 2019. And my reasoning for that is this. I have a whole plan sketched out for every month between now and then that more or less will be filled in by a number of video singles that I've kind of kept to the side throughout this past year and even year 2. I've got some older material. Songs that are like singular microcosm kind of tracks that I think are really good on their own, and I wanted to kind of set them to the side so that I could really have some time to spend on the video content and make that something maybe a little bit more special. I'm actually experimenting. The latest video I just put out for Deep Earth, Tranca Jaj, or however you can say that, was the first one that I made using generative software stuff. Basically, so you're seeing the sound being visualized in a reactive way, and then that signal in turn is being manipulated via all the usual deep earth tricks with like filters and processing and stuff. So I want to get more into that and do some more involved things, and those take time. So I want to do some more video singles. Also, during this next few months, I'm going to be working on, you may have seen me mention chapbook or zine. A chapbook is basically a nice fancy word for like a zine, like a DIY. You might have seen like a lot of punk bands doing them back in the day and still. But I've been really wanting to put together such a thing for each year of the Deep Earth series, namely to compile and sort of eloquently present all of the photography for all the public and private releases, all the album covers, and all of the text in both the native Esperanto and the translated English. And in that way, I think it would function kind of half as like a travel log or a map of the series, maybe something to enjoy while you're listening to the records. But also almost in a weird, displaced way, like some kind of a libretto. You know, I don't know if that's just on the mind recently because Gas just put out his newest album, and he mentioned that there's this this insert with text on it that I think the text is brilliant. But he mentioned that it could be considered a libretto, so I've kind of got that on the mind. Certainly, there's nothing operatic about Deep Earth in that way, so that's probably a bad comparison. But yeah, but I do want to put those together, and they're going to take some time because I'm going to have them Xeroxed old school style, and basically they're going to be an 8.5 by 11 sheet that's going to be numbered and laid out and everything, and then folded in half and stapled. And I'm going to try to get my friend David, who does a print shop thing, independent business down in his basement in Georgia, to do maybe some printed canvas covers for the front and the back to wrap around and maybe put a little weight on the thing so that it doesn't hang open all the time from all the pages. So that's sort of the plan. Oh, and also each one of those would come with like a disc that would kind of compile and collect a lot of my favorite tracks from that year of the series. So those would just be a neat little, sort of artifact, I guess. And I'm working on all 3 of them since year 3 is finishing up now. So there'd be 3 of those. Same approach also for approaching my friend David to do some nice printed posters, one for each year of the series. I don't know how big they'd get or what, but I know he has told me he's got a lot of really nice print stocks and paper stocks to work from, some of which he's imported from Germany and stuff. Really nice stuff. He's done some art prints back in the day when we were still running the Install label together that looked beautiful. And there's also some posters in here. There's a framed one right there from back when we were doing Expanding Electronic Diversity together, which was before Install and before Second Son and everything we did. That was the very beginning. 2006. So, anyway, yeah, so I'm going to be trying to do some posters, trying to do these chapbooks, video singles, and also somewhere in that, several months time frame between now and the end of the year, I'd be probably commissioning and organizing some remix records from friends of mine. So you can expect some cool names to pop up. I know you've seen a lot of people kind of come back, Nemo and Jamin. There's the Occur remix record for Okazi, and Substack has done like 3 of them now, and then a number of other ones from people like Zwei Kreis and Orson Throb and Mosca and a whole bunch of my friends. So I'm hoping to open that door back up, give some people some sample packs, and get some more remixes rolling to keep that whole reconfiguration thing happening. And on top of that, I would also be spending the time finishing the text and photography for year 4, getting all that in hand, and organizing and putting together the year 3 complete box set, which, as you know from year 2 and year 1, is probably going to take a little bit of time. But hopefully you can understand the idea of wanting to do this in this fashion is that then if all these things come to pass, you guys are still going to have lots of cool content to look forward to between now and the end of the year. and I'm going to feel a lot more kind of cleared up to start a new year of the series without anything else like kind of hindering it on the table. You know, no video singles that I've been setting aside. You know, no sort of, you know, artifact projects like the chat books and stuff that I'd have to take time away to do. Just kind of want to start with a clean slate and see where we can go from there. And also, the other thing on kind of a more selfish note is that between now and then, hopefully by the end of the year, I'd like to fill out the studio with a couple more pieces of gear that I don't have yet. I'd really like to get the last two Volcas that I don't have, the Kick and the FM, and those would massively play into the sound of Series 4, as well as some other things. I don't know. So I kind of want to just give it a little bit of breathing time, work on some really fun stuff in the meantime, and yeah, and that's basically the plan. And of course, I'll keep you guys all updated as the whole process continues. And yeah, and that's it. And if you are into that, I would love to have you. I know I looked at the numbers, and I think there's actually 3 of you that are up for resubscribe sometime in the next like week or something. Actually, I think it was the end of May. There's like 3 of you that all subbed in May, probably because that was when it got started, actually. So if you're interested in resubbing, I massively appreciate it. I know it's a chunk of change in one spot at 100 or 150 a year. It's still going to be 100 a year if it's if you signed up at the beginning and never broke your subscription, because that price is the same. But yeah, definitely if you're subbed in and you want to check for when it renews, I don't want it to be a big surprise in your bank account. But I would love for you all to stay on and continue to see what I've got in store. I've got a lot of cool ideas left to explore. And it's just sort of remarkable to me anyway how this series has been, you know, the longest running series that I've done ever. Sunday was only 2 years. Static Farming only had 2 years. Working Man's Drone only had 2 years, and they weren't consecutive. This has been 3 years consecutive. And I don't think I'm cheating or breaking that by waiting until 2019 to begin Earth 37. So, that said, I'm just really proud of it. And it's very unique, and it wouldn't have been made completely possible were it not for the support that you guys have had subscribing to it the whole time and giving me some feedback here and there. I really appreciate all of that. Just having ears for a project like this is immensely rewarding on its own. And you know, because really it's conceptually, I think it's an interesting thing to think about for me, because it almost represents the sort of borderlands of my work, of my production processes. Like, Deep Earth is a place where you can expect to hear new ideas and new gear and new production processes play out in kind of an almost testing way before they ever end up on like kind of a non-Deep Earth Coppice Halifax record or even a Milieu record, or if they end up on those things at all. You know, in that way, it's very much like the wilds surrounding the continent of you know, most of the rest of my work. And you know, and as I've found going through 3 years of this, like, it feels like Deep Earth is in and of itself a continent-sized place. That I have really barely touched the surface of where I thought it might go, and gone a lot of other places with it that I never thought it would go. So I'm super into it. I think it's cool. I'm very excited, and I like also having it as this sort of existing sideline to my sort of main work. You know, and to do things that are maybe a little left to center. I don't have to make more commercially based or influenced decisions with it. You know, like, it's all price capped. It's $7 per. The subscribers pay once a year and they get everything. It's not a money-making thing. It's more of a just kind of self-oscillating, self-sustaining idea that's more bent on having interesting artistic things to say and showing those things as sort of up close and without outside interference as possible. So it's a very pure idea, and I'm very happy that you're all along for that, because I had no idea where it was going to go beyond the first 3 or 4 EPs when I first started the thing. And here we are at I just counted the other day 69 catalog releases, which includes the public ones, the subscriber-only ones. Does not include the individual video single releases. The none of the remix albums are in that number. And that's just impressive to me. That's a whole body of work all by itself. So I can't say it enough. Thank you so much for being a part of this. I hope you'll stick with me for the next phase. Got a lot of things in store, and yeah, and I can't wait to show them to you. I can't wait for you to hear them. And in the meantime, though, I've just given you a whole lot of music to listen to. The subscriber-only counterpart releases to the latest 4 public ones will follow in the next week or so. I'm still kind of tidying up some audio files and making them as legible as I can, because they're all from jams and things like that that have been kind of piled up around here while I've been sick. But those are coming, so expect 4 more releases on top of the ones that just came out. And there may actually be another video single before year 3 is over. There was one that I kind of wanted to finish off with, and it's a huge, like, 18-minute track all by itself. It'd easily be the longest video single I've done, which is why it's probably going to take like a whole week of work, because rendering 18-minute video files is just a nightmare. But yeah, thank you for your patience, thank you for your support, thank you for your listening, everything, and let me know if you have any questions, as usual, any comments, any feedback on anything. All of it's taken into account, read, listened to, and sometimes responded to. Take it easy. Thank you very much.